Welcome to J Radio Television. I'm your talk show host, Steve Livier. Today we have a very special guest on our show. His name is Gerry Leet. He's the pastor and director of development at the City Center Ministry right here at Scotia Square in downtown Halifax, where we're currently doing the interview. This special show will be all about crime prevention. So let's first of all greet our special guest, Gerry Leet.
Hi, Steve. Thanks very much for having me.
You're welcome. Have a seat, Gerry.
Thank you, Steve.
So, Gerry, as we've been discussing, this special interview will be mainly focused and concentrated on crime prevention. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Right. And there will most definitely be quite a few elements towards crime prevention that we'll be talking through this interview. We will be introducing the missing link, which is a very good discovery. It's good to acknowledge what it is. We will also discuss what are the spiritual causes and the solutions to crime. There will be a revelation of your most wanted, a fantastic tool for churches, as well as professionals and even community services. Shattered by pride, touché par la fierté. Both of them will be available in French and English as ebooks or physical, like this format, as well as the DVD itself. Now, Gerry, I was looking after your website, gerrylee.com, and I must say that trying to deliver a message of Jesus Christ to a secular world, as well as inspire in providing, social conditions to community, is most definitely a challenge. And I'm absolutely sure it's something feasible. Is that correct?
Well, I would have to say yes, because, Steve, I've lived it.
Yes.
Prior to getting in trouble with the law, as you know, I'm an ex-police officer.
Yes.
And
yes.
I, at that time, is explained in my book, Shattered by Pride, I had fairly successful life.
Right.
From a worldly perspective.
Yes.
Again, I had a beautiful, wonderful wife.
Right.
4 beautiful children.
Yes.
And a nice big home that we probably couldn't afford.
Okay.
Lots of things that, the world is a materialistic place, and
True.
I certainly
Yes.
I certainly bought into that.
Yes. We all have these fantastic dreams where we want to have it all.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And so I had, I as I grew up as a young person in my community, I had a sense of God and a sense of faith.
Okay.
But not really committed.
No?
Not really
Okay.
committed. But however, when I got in trouble, I started looking for the reasons for my behavior.
That's a really good start.
Yes, examining that. I have a degree in sociology and criminology, so I have a social science
True.
background.
Yes.
But that didn't provide me the answers
No.
which I needed.
And I must say that, Gerry, after reading your book, and especially after realizing that, having a sociology degree plus your criminology together, how I was trying to imagine how was it to end up, breaking the law and being on the opposite side.
Yes, 2 things. I'll comment on that.
Okay.
And when I did eventually go to prison,
Right.
one of the inmates there who I had known for a long time,
Right.
and he was inside for a double murder.
Okay.
And he said to me when he saw me, because he knew I was going to have a rough time
Right.
being an ex-police officer,
Mm-hmm.
and he had indicated, he said, I know your background and your education. He says,
Right.
but let me tell you,
Mm-hmm.
this is going to be an education for you. And it was a very painful
Right.
education, but I can tell you, I did learn, being on the other side of the law, rather than being a police officer and enforcing
Mm-hmm.
the law was enforced on me.
Right.
And so many revelations came out of that. And secondly,
Mm-hmm.
I remember years ago Billy Graham saying, he said, given certain circumstances, we are all capable of just about anything. And I have to say, since my circumstances and my study of crime
Right.
for the last 20 years, that's very true. Given certain elements in our lives, certain stresses,
Yes.
we're human, and we may fail and falter. We may not go out like I did and rob banks
Right.
because of I felt I was in a great deal of financial problems and felt desperate. But we may do other things in life that aren't as serious. But there are things that eternally that are not visible to us. And so for me, I found out the missing link is,
Right.
you said in your opening comments,
Yes.
of crime.
Being able to put those elements together, I'm sure our viewers can start to see a lot more of why you had decided to take the route to breach the law,
Mhm.
to go against what you what you have
What I
learned.
believed.
Because on the other side, for you, your family, the security of your family, and to be able to keep up to date in your bills,
Mhm.
that's when to go in overall, and when
Mhm.
to pretty much bust the rest.
Mhm.
And the other side is Gerry, as you understand, did go to jail, and going to a federal prison. How was the experience of being received there?
Well, there was, prior to that experience,
Right.
there was the experience before going to prison, which at that point in my situation, I started, recognizing I lost my business, I lost my
Yes.
job, I was losing my house, I was losing my wife. Family and friends look
Mhm.
at you differently, and what
Right.
happened to this guy? And so all that I valued in life, that was my identity,
Mhm.
was slipping away. And
Okay.
so I struggled to find the human logical answers to
Right.
what was happening to me.
Okay.
But the answers for my situation I could not find in psychology, sociology, or philosophy. I remember my parish priest came and saw me, and I started seeking anyone's advice. I was not one to, because of the name of the book, Shattered by Pride, I was a prideful person, so I wasn't one to go seek help.
Okay.
But some circumstances put you in a position where you just have no control. And so during that period of time, Steve, prior going to prison, I went through such a almost like a transformation in my thinking.
Right.
And I remember the priest telling me to read the book of Matthew, or the book of John, I'm sorry.
Yes.
And I read that, and I thought, wow, I never read that, really read it with such, searching for the answers to my situation.
Right.
And so that started me on a journey. started me on.
Yes. No. I'm still listening.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So that started me on a journey.
Right.
And so going to prison
Yes.
was a terrifying experience.
Okay.
Having automatically 400 enemies that would like
Yes.
to stab you or
Right.
beat you
Mhm.
because there's a lot of frustration.
Yes.
And so it was a very terrifying time. And to tell you that I wasn't afraid would be a lie, because I had great fear going there. I could hear them screaming, "Pig, pig, we're going to get you, and we're going to get your family," and that just incited me, where, whatever energy I had left, I wanted to protect my family.
Yes.
So it was almost like a jungle atmosphere,
Right.
and so it became very, very violent after about a week of being there. And so eventually I was corralled by 8 inmates, and
Right.
they
That's the part in your book, Shattered by Pride, where you mentioned that you were being mobbed by those people, correct?
yeah, it's almost like something you see out of the movies, because we're in a courtyard, and
Right.
I see eight of them, approximately 8 of them, marching towards me.
Okay.
And it was a setup.
Okay.
And so, there was fists and maybe something like a baton and kicks coming. And
Okay.
so it was a very violent. But I can tell you this, I had this new faith now, and it gave me hope, because I had, be quite frank, I explained it in my book, I had considered suicide. I had a fairly significant life insurance policy that would take care of my wife and kids.
Okay.
And through the contact with the church and through others,
Right.
I found this hope. And so when I was being pummeled, I would say, God got me out of that, because the friend who I talked about earlier
Yes.
in this interview
Yes.
came to my rescue, and he started throwing them off me, and striking them and screaming at them, and I was able to. Basically, he ran up to me. He says, "Get out of here! Get out of here now!" And so I was able to get away. I had a few scrapes and bruises, and was in the prison hospital for a few days. But
Right.
they meant to do serious harm.
Yes.
So from my new belief in Christ, I knew God had intervened. Evil wanted to destroy me, completely destroy me, and God intervened, and so I was able to get out of that. And mind you, the problems weren't over, but I explain in more detail exactly in the book, in more detail about how that happened, how it all came to be. And so I was able to live to see my children again, which was
Yes.
my main focus.
Talking about your children and your family, most certainly for them to see you going through this entire process, not just while you're in jail, but even before you were in jail. When I was reading the book, there's a lot of, I would say, paragraphs where when you right before the sentences that were coming up, it must have been. How was the experience for your family to live through police people coming to your police officers coming to your home to get you under arrest, and your children seeing their father
Yeah.
going through this?
Yeah. It was certainly a devastating trauma for my family. The police officers were Some of them were friends of mine
Yes.
who didn't want to be there.
Right.
So it was a very, very difficult thing. My, my, my wife at that time, you know, she rightly so said, "Who am I married to?
Yes.
How could he ever do something like this and jeopardize the family?" And
Right.
my own family and my extended family, I shocked and shamed. You know, once you lose your integrity, Steve,
Yes.
you know, you can lose a lot of things in life, but when you lose your integrity, it's a long road back to get your integrity back.
I imagine so.
And so, you know, in the criminal justice system in my community, it was a very difficult thing. You know, there's you know, hard for people to accept, and so, and
Yes.
I understand that. And certainly, if I was on the other side, it was one of my friends that did what
Right.
I did, I know the perspective I would have had as a former policeman. You know, I would have had the exact same perspective. So, just like them,
Uh-huh.
I had to find the reason Gerry Leet robbed banks. Why did he do that when he had so much to
True.
lose?
Yes.
And so you know, I believe in my research and in my studies that I found the solutions, and they're in the Bible.
True.
You know, you don't have to go too far.
No.
And so that took me on a journey, which has taken many years. And so when I speak to people who have been in trouble with law, whether in conflict in
Right.
their lives, I feel this is where I feel and find the answers are. So it's really it really provides hope, a new way, can transform your life and transform a marriage, and so that's why I trained to become a pastor, and
Yes.
and I, you know, I
Yes.
really believe in the gospel message to all of us, because each of us, you know, have challenge. It says in the gospel, well, Jesus said, "You will have trouble in this world." And I always found that an interesting verse. You will have trouble in this world. So it's a promise that God says, you know, I know you're going to have trouble.
Yes.
But he also says in that verse, he says, "But take cheer, I have overcome the world." And so for every life, this is an answer in the midst of whatever confusion, suffering, or pain people are going through.
True. Well, even if we go through challenges in our lives, the crime prevention program is most definitely related to trusting God, trusting the Lord, and the more our spirit is linked and focused towards God, we cannot miss it. Because after all, God loves us. God wants the very best for us. And Gerry has most certainly learned a very difficult journey. He has most definitely went through a lot of venture to understand how pride was something that was in his heart from me reading the book, where pride is not something that is something that we can diagnose right away. He did get to realize that being pride and being proud so much that the moment you have everything you want and you just want more and more because you just want to satisfy your ego, if you satisfy your relationship with God, as I said, you can't be wrong. You can only be right because God wants the very best for us. And we spoke about how your family had been and how they reacted, how they went through this journey with you. I must say, following leaving the federal jail, a lot of people
do not necessarily find employment right away, as it is very hard. People will judge, people will have different reactions. However, I must say that I want to ask you, on your side, how did you find it to find employment? How was it for you?
Well, very, very difficult. It was always difficult. Um, the consequences of whether it's criminal behavior or any other type of behavior
Yes.
have, birthed a new set of circumstances, and those may be quite negative, and they were
Right.
very negative for me. But however, we had mentioned earlier about a crime prevention, and I let the causation factors from a chronology point of view.
Yes.
You look at psychological challenges. You may look at poverty,
Right.
educational opportunity, addictions, whether alcohol and drugs. You look; these all play into to crime.
Yes.
What I looked at in the missing link is what is behind all that. What is
Yes.
the root cause
Right.
of that? Because I didn't fit any of those categories. The category I fit in was pride, and
Yes.
pride and greed, and so my prideful acts, like in the criminal code, there's no mention of there's none for pride.
Right.
There's an
Yes.
offense for bank robbery, but there's an offense for pride
Right.
and a penalty. Well, part of my pride
Mm-hmm.
birthed circumstances which would cause me to be humble. And so when I looked at it in the employment perspective, Steve,
Right.
I was humbled and to be humble. And it was a very, very difficult process and painful process. One, because on my own personal constitution, but two, to be able to make the amount of money necessary to contribute to the family
Right.
and to be able to sustain myself.
Right.
So anyone who is coming up prison, that's a huge obstacle, and that's why the reason why there's so much the offended drug dealer who is just he's got opportunity a lot of money in a
Yes.
very short time.
Right.
So if he gets out and he can't get a job, then most likely he'll go back to that.
Right.
Unless he's had intervention, Jesus Christ. And
That
that's
makes sense.
the missing.
Definitely.
When you have a relationship with Jesus Christ,
Yeah.
transforms who you are. Because in us, in our physical self,
Mm-hmm.
I tell people, I didn't have to teach children how to behave growing up.
No.
Naturally.
Right.
And they weren't that bad. It's just for us as we grow old.
Yes.
We don't have to teach people to misbehave. They do naturally. What force is behind that? Why do we lean towards ethical things? Why do walkies are evil people in the Wall Street? Why do we all or lean towards doing that is not criminal? So is where the is. So our behavior sometimes control facts that we think. And so I think I both and I have news are called big can go to evil. The mentions evil in various forms. Evil, great evil, and so the different cases you might see from what and always that or did he grow it? So one thing I learned in school is there's necessarily call that getting to that goal. So yeah, this is got a pin palm. If it's 2 1 week